Commissioner, recently the GAO made, I believe, 49 recommendations as to how the IRS could better protect taxpayers from being hacked, having their information hacked. This is on top of 49 recommendations that were made previously. My question is, how many of the 49 earlier recommendations have been implemented, and when do you expect all these recommendations to be implemented?
We're working on those. GAO, as I say, we've had a couple thousand recommendations over time. GAO has done a very great service for us in the last year of prioritizing of the range of recommendations, which are the highest priorities, and we are working on those. Our hope.
How many of the 49 have you implemented so far, the earlier 49?
The earlier 49, I don't have that number for you. I'll have to get that for you. But our goal is to implement all of them. There's been some question about why we didn't immediately sign on to the most recent ones, but the process is we are supposed to advise Congress within 60 days of the detailed timeline, and we will provide you with the timeline for solutions to all of those.
Right, and the most recent 45 were just last month, and I realize you need some time to have them implemented, but I did hear you say you intend to implement them all.
Yes.
In regard to the 49, how long will it take you to inform us as to how many have been implemented?
We'll be able to provide you that information in the next week.
Okay, why not in the next 10 minutes?
Well, because I don't have that information with me. I'll have to get it from people.
Can some member of your staff sitting behind you get it for us before the hearing is over?
Some members of my staff sitting behind me can try to do that. We'd be delighted.
Okay, thank you for that.
Pardon?
So we have computers and assistants here if they don't have paper with them, if they need to find.
My next question, Commissioner, is this. I understand that the IRS issues refunds to individuals even when the names and the Social Security numbers don't match. Why does the IRS do that? It seems to me that you're catering to and perhaps even encouraging fraud. I understand there may be millions of individuals who are getting these refunds to the tune of many, many millions of dollars. Why don't you stop doing that, or what can you do to correct it?
Right. We actually don't issue refunds where there's a Social Security number on the return and a name that doesn't match.
Okay.
I think the issue you're dealing with is people who don't have and aren't able to get a Social Security number file with an IT TIN.
Correct.
And those IT TINs come in, and people who are paying taxes, a lot of them are in the country working without the ability to get a Social Security number. Their obligation is to pay taxes. If there ever is a way for them to become citizens, the first question they're asked is, have you paid your taxes?
Right. But again, if the name and the Social Security number don't match, you are not issuing any refunds?
No, and so if the name and the Social Security number on the return don't match, now what the situation I think you're focused on is people borrow, steal, however they get a Social Security number to get a job, so their W-2 may have a different Social Security number, but their name and the IT TIN, we grant the IT TINs, those will match, and as long as they match, our responsibility is to collect the taxes people owe. It's not to, in fact...
But for example, I've heard, I don't know if this is accurate, where someone would put in a Social Security number of 00000 all the way across, and that they are still getting refunds.
They can't do that on a tax return. The only thing they would be doing there is if they're using that Social Security number to get a job, they have
to... Right, I understand the difference, but still no refunds when there's a mismatch.
There's no refund. If you file a return with a Social Security number and a name that don't match, we wouldn't give you a refund.
That's good to know. Next question is addressed to Mr. Wilshusen and Mr. George, and it is this. We've had a situation where something like over 700,000 people have had their tax information stolen, over 100,000 have had their Social Security numbers stolen, all in order to access an e-file PIN just this last year. What are the implications of that? What are the consequences of that? What does that say about the future? What can we do about it? Mr. Wilshusen, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, one of the implications is that information could be used by criminals to commit identity theft and related financial crimes. It can also be used to help promote or facilitate identity theft refund fraud, since they would have additional information that could potentially get past IRS's filters for trying to detect that type of fraud.
Okay. Mr. George?
I associate myself with the comments that he just made, and this actually relates somewhat to a very important factor that hasn't really been discussed much today, and that is, while we at TICTA haven't found that the IRS's computers themselves have been breached, as it was indicated, the moment people are able to gain the name, social security number, and other information, personal information of taxpayers, that's really where the vulnerability exists currently to the system of tax administration.
And I might just add for the
Yes.
chairman's benefit, the social security numbers that have been stolen and the identity information has been stolen, all has been stolen someplace outside the IRS. Nobody is being able to get that information from us.
The
The
IRS.
hacks have come with people masquerading already as taxpayers legitimately with social security numbers and names that match.
Okay, last quick question, if you'll answer yes or no, I'll address it to all three of our witnesses today. Is an individual's tax return and their personal information on that tax return safer this year than last year? Commissioner, what would you say?
Yes, safer.
Mr. George?
I have no indication that that is not the case.
Okay, Mr. Wilshusen?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but I would probably say I have no evidence to show it's higher or lower.
Just maybe the same. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.